Begin the current Daf, Mesechta Gitin Daf Pei Zayin. Begin on the bottom of Pei Vav Beis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara begins explaining the halacha of our Mishnah regarding two people that send a get together, where there was the Mishnah said that there's a type of a get that if they are all included, then it's going to be kosher. But if they send individually, then it's going to be only the one that was nikranimoid, that was with that last one written, then it's going to be kosher. The Gemara is going to have a machlekes regarding how to qualify this halacha. Today's daf. Some discussed in today's daf are the halacha of the Mishnah. It says chamisha shekas v'klal b'terich haget. What happens if 5 people make a communal get? So they say the whole neighborhood say, we're done with this. We're going to get divorced. So they write it all in the same get. So the Mishnah says, all kosher, and they'll give it to every single woman that communal get. But the Mishnah says, if there was a separate text for each and every one, so you have Shimon divorcing Leah, you have Moshe divorcing Chana, you have this whole thing. The last one that it's with, they're going to be kosher, then it won't be valid as in the first case. Now, as machlekes Rabbi Shloimy that we're going to see right away, what is considered general, communal, that it's going to work for everyone, and what's considered a specific text that only the last one that the witnesses assigned on is going to be kosher. Then we get with the next Mishnah, a very complicated type of a case, which is you have Edom Ivrim and Edom Yevanim. There's Jewish, meaning they're both Jewish, but there are the Israeli, so to speak, witnesses, and then you have the Jewish Greek witnesses on the document. And they sign in different ways, so therefore there's going to be complexities, as some of the cases of the Mishnah are. If you have 2 Gitin that are written on side by side, and you have 2 Ivrim witnesses, and you have 2 Greek witnesses that are coming from one side to the other side, as we'll see and illustrate as we get to the Gemara. That's one case. So let's say you have an Ivri witness, then the Greek witness, then the Ivri witness, and then the Greek witness that are coming from one to the other one. So you have these 2 parallel Gitin, and then you have they're signing beneath it. So we're going to have to try to figure out exactly what is that they're signed on regards to these 2 Gitin. So begin the current Daf Peivav Mabeis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. We had said in the Mishnah that you have chamisha shekasa klal b'tich get. If you have one get that was written for 5 people, and one general statement that this person divorced this woman, and this person divorced this woman, and 2 witnesses were signed on the bottom, the Mishnah said they're all kosher, and you're going to give it to each and every one. But we said, if let's say the get was written for each person specifically, and you have Eden signed on the bottom, so then the Mishnah said, Esha Eden Nikmei kosher, the get is only kosher for the person written last, whose name directly precedes the Eden. However, the get is possible for all those written before, because these are considered multiple Gitin. The final get is a separation between the Eden and the previous Gitin, and it's possible that a Basur the Chasim is only being signed for the last one. That was the halacha we mentioned in the Mishnah. Now, however, as we begin, that the Gemara brings the words of the Mishnah, Chamisha Shekasu Klal B'chul, like we just mentioned, that you have 5 people, if they're written as a klal, then it's okay, but if there's written a specific text for each one, it's going to be only kosher for the last one. So the Gemara says, Heichid Dame Klal. What is considered a general that's communal, that's going to be kosher for them all? And Heichid Dame Tevis, what's considered as a specific text for each one, which is only going to be kosher for the last one? So Machlekes is in the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan, he says, Zman Echad Lekulan, if there was one date that was written for them all, there was only one date written on the top, Zel Klal, that's considered a general, and they're all one get, and if it's kosher for each one, just hand it over to every one of those women. Zman L'Kol Echad Be'echad, if you wrote a separate date by each and every person, Zel Taifis, that's going to be considered a specific text, that then it's considered a separate Gitin, and only the last guy who's written on the document, the witness signed beneath him, it's only being signed on his quote-unquote get, not on all the previous ones. That's according to Rabbi Yochanan. Shlakashami says, Gitin Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph says, no. Even if you have one date for them all, that's not going to make it a communal get. That's still going to be considered as every single person has his own specific get to invalidate the upper ones, because since each couple is mentioned separate, it's like each one is his own get. Comes out the last one is a separation of the Adam who signed on the bottom, they're only signing on the one before that. So according to Rish Lakish, what is considered a communal get, that like everyone is doing it together and then it's going to be kosher? The Chasab, they wrote in the plural. Anu, Pliny, Pliny. All the men are listed. It's Azar Chabira. right? They said, us together, this man and this man, we're divorcing our wives. That Rachel, Leah, Devorah, Sarah, Mara, Miriam, all that's considered one big get. That's going to work. It's not like the witness only signed on the last one because they're all together. So Masking, but Rabbi asks, Rabbi Yochanan, it's a little bit of a complex daf. Rabbi Yochanan, the Amad that he says, Man echad lekulan, that if you have one date for them all, that already makes it zeu klal. The problem is, since you're telling me, according to Rabbi Yochanan, every man and women are mentioned separately, it's saying them separately. He doesn't have the communal terminology of the plural. He said just one date. One date is enough. Even though it's separate, it's saying separate that Moshe divorcing Sprints and this and that, it's saying this separately. But if that's the case, why are you not concerned that the witnesses that are signed on the bottom, they're only signing on the last couple that's mentioned? And how could you assume it's going on all the couples that were mentioned on this whole get? Immediately, Tanya didn't learn the Brisa, the following halacha. Edom chasumin al sheila shalom get. If you have witnesses that are signed on a greeting on a get, if there was a greeting at the end of a get, puzzle, it's going to be puzzle. Why? We're concerned that maybe if at the end of the get it says, and by the way, send regards to Menachem, I haven't seen them in years, on the get, because they lived who knows how far and is delivering it or whatever, and the witness is signed, we don't know, maybe they're signing on the greeting. You know, Gam Onum Mitzdarf and L'Chalanal, we also want to send regards to Matcha, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is. So it's going to be puzzle. So we see that it only goes in the last thing that was written. So why are you validating all the people written beforehand? Maybe it's only the last one, according to Rabbi Yochanan. How can you say that's a klal? So the Gemara, no, love it. Allah, didn't we say on that halacha Amar Rabbi Bo? He says, "L'didi mefash lemonade Rabbi Yochanan." To me, it was explained from Rabbi Yochanan that shalu. When did we say the halacha that's going to be puzzle? It's if they asked about how he's doing, that it was his own independent statement, and that would separate from the get beforehand. But vishalu kasher, and if they were greeting, then it's going to be kasher, meaning if there's a vav or not. If there's no vav, you're right, it's going to be possible because it's like the greeting, the PS postscript says, send regards, and they're signing on that. We don't know, but if it says and send regards, on that they sign, that's going to be kasher. Hachanami, the same thing's over here. The chsib it says plaini uplaini. It says him and him and him and him and him and him and him. So the vav is connecting. So since there's a vav connecting, therefore according to Rabbi Yochanan, that would be a klal, and because it has one date for them all, and therefore it's going to be kosher for them all. Now, but then the Gemara says further another question. Moreover, Rabbi Yochanan, that he says man l'kol echad, that if it has a separate date, which the Gemara assumes that if they're having separate dates, that means to say each one's date was different. Because they're going around, we got to the Rabbunim, signing on these papers, says he's divorcing until he gets from here to him, he gets 2 days to travel. So they're all different dates on that one get. But if that's the case, so then Zeu Taifis, you're telling me that's okay, it's a separate text, and therefore that's going to invalidate the upper ones because the witness is only signed on the bottom one? But my area, why do you have to tell me that the upper ones are invalid, Mishum Taifis, because they have a separate text? Because the witnesses are not read together with their quote-unquote get, their line of their get, because it's only written on the last line. Typically, it should be sufficient that it's invalid because all of them, except for the last one, are nechtev bayom and nechtev balayla, which it doesn't literally mean to say necessarily written by day and signed at night. It just means that it's going to be signed at a later point in time because the witness only signed until the last get, so to speak, the last line was written. Like Rash says, nechtev balayla is lavdafka, just because that's the terminology in the Mishnah, which we learned in Daf Yud Mid Aleph, of that even if it's written by day and it's written on that night, an hour later, it's going to be possible for sure tomorrow or a later day. So then that itself should invalidate the upper ones. Forget about the halacha of Taifis L'Cholechad. So Amalei Bar Kashisha, but Edav Chizl, Rabashi says, you know what they said in Rabbi Yochanan to answer this question? It says that this guy divorced that woman, and then it says on Sunday that this guy divorced this woman, where now there's no invalidation of the earlier ones because of the date, because they're actually all written on the same day. They're all in the same neighborhood. You got them a few minutes till you got to the next guy. The only reason why it's going to be possible, the upper one, is because it's Taifis Kolechad, because there's a separation. The signatures are only being on the last one. Therefore, it's going to be possible specifically for that reason. Now the Gemara asks on the other opinion. Says Rish Lakish, according to Rish Lakish, that he says that if it has one date for them all, he doesn't hold that like a Yechon that's enough to make it into this klal. He holds no, Nami Tevis have that's still a specific text because each one's being mentioned separately. And he said the Hechlim klal. So what's considered klal? He said the Chsib Buhachi. If it says Onu ploini us together, Girashnu Neshaseinu plainis and plainis, we developed a union already. Right? We're going to say we're going to divorce them together. Okay, then it's going to be considered as a klal, and obviously the witnesses are on every divorce because they're all together. But then says the Gemara, it comes out that you have two women being divorced with one get. Yet you're calling it one get, and never the witnesses are signed on that whole thing together. But the problem is, the Torah says v'chas of law. Chas of law says you should write for her saber creases is v'loy lo v'lo chaverta. It can't be for her and her friend. It's law in the singular. So how could you have one get divorcing 20 women? Says the Gemara, no, because the other kasav. No, the witnesses are definitely signed on the whole thing because it was said in a plural terminology. But then subsequently it was written plainly girish plainis or plainly girish plainis, where each one was individual. But the first terminology at least lets us know that the witnesses know that it's on all these Gitin that they're signing. But it ends up being independent. We don't care about the paper being one paper. It just has to be separate Gitin and the separate Gitin. So therefore, it's not a problem about law below the chaberta. However, the Gemara asks, on this teaching itself, he says, wait a second. How is it different than what we learned in the following brayso? The brayso says like this. Someone writes his whole estate to his two slaves. Both of his slaves, Bob and Jerry. They're the two slaves, they're getting the whole thing. So Kanu, they acquire it, and the Meshachar Zeh, because ultimately we're slaves. Now they have to free each other. Now, the halachas of Eved, we learn that from Isha, where it says law by Isha, it says law by Eved. We learn that the halachas. And we see over here that we're not invalidating the shtar shichur from law below chaverta, because when you're freeing them both at the same time, so really it's similar to the first halacha of Rish Lakish. When Rish Lakish said, us, plainly or plainly, that we divorce our wives, plainness or plainness, meaning the first part of the way he describes the get, which is in the plural. So why do you subsequently have to write, as Gemara just entered, that, you have to then add on, this guy's divorcing this woman, this man is divorcing this woman. But you see over here in the brayso that it says, when he writes that all my nechasim are to plainly avdi, the brayso says, they acquire all the nechasim. And comes out each and every one is half free man, half slave to his friend, and we see they could free each other. So, but in the laws of Eved are the same as the Isha. So why over there is it no problem, and over here it's a problem? Says the Gemara, no, Valava Kimna, didn't we explain that teaching of that brayso regarding the Avadim in Perek HaShalech Yad is Bishnei Shtaros, is in two different documents. He writes in the shtar that all my estate is to that person my Eved, and in the second document, he writes, on all my estate is written to that other Eved. And he gives it to them at the same time, where neither one is before the other one. Because if anyone would be before, he obviously would acquire everything. So therefore, they both acquire everything. And that's what he's saying. So this guy's saying it's all mine. This one's saying all mine. So they split it 50-50. But it's two different documents. Because on the same document, you're right, it would be possible because of law, but you wouldn't be able to do two avadim in the same shtar. And you would have to write, okay, then plainly separate and plainly separate. Here, that it's all together, it's really not really one shtar, it's really two different stars, and that's how it's working, because each one's getting his own shtar, and they're splitting 50-50, because they're all both getting the whole thing. Says the Gemara, Tani Kava said Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Bryce says like Rabbi Yechanan, and Tani Kava said Rish Lakish, Rabbi Bryce says like Rish Lakish. What's the Bryces? So the Gemara explains. Tani Kava said Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Bryce says like Rabbi Yechanan, that says like this. It just will point out the point that says like Rabbi Yechanan. Chamisha shekasa b'teicha get. If you have 5 people that wrote in a get, is plainly megadish plainness. That man is divorcing that woman. Uplaini plainness, and that man that woman. Uplaini plainness, and that man that woman. But v'zman echad lekulan. That's the part that's like Rabbi Yechanan. As long as there's one date for them all, that according to Rabbi Yechanan makes it a klal, a communal one, so the witnesses are signed on the whole thing. The edim al-mata and the witnesses are the bottom. Kulan kashem, they're all going to be valid. And and you'll give it to each and every one. That's Rabbi Yechanan that it doesn't say in the brayso. Anu plainly, us plural. It doesn't say that. That's like Rabbi Yechanan, not Rish Lakish. Now, but says the Bryce is man l'kol echad be'echad. However, if each one has his own date, ve'edim l'mata and the witnesses are on the bottom, okay, then esha edim nikra mayim are kosher. And only the witnesses that are read with it, which the last one is going to be kosher, but the upper one's not. However, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira, he says, im yesh revach beinehen pasel, that if there's a gap between them, then it's going to be pasel. But v'mlav, if not, then actually they're all going to be kosher, because he says she'ein zman mafsikan. He says the fact that there's a separate date does not interrupt it. So he holds very lenient. He says only if there's a space that shows like it's separate. But if there's no space, I don't care if each one is mentioned separate, and I don't care if each one even has its own date. He holds it's going to be kosher. The witnesses are signing the whole thing. That's one brisa. Tani Gava says Rish Lakish. Then we have the brisa says like Rish Lakish, and we'll point out which point is like Rish Lakish. Chamisha shekasu klal b'techa get. You have 5 people that wrote a general text in the get, and this is exactly what he says. Anu in the plural, plaini, this man and this man and this man. Gerash nishasenu. We divorce our wives. The bund plainness. This woman and this woman. Again, that's like Rish Lakish, where you have to say in the plural. And then we also said it has to say separately, which it says here also. Plain the girish plainness. We said that the reason why it has to be mentioned separately is because, or else it would be lo chaberta. So you also have to have then separately mention them. And there's manechel kulan. There's one date for them all. You have witnesses on the bottom. Kulan kasher, they're all going to be kosher. But you give it to each and one because that's the halach of klal, as we said like Rish Lakish, when you say it all together in the plural. But if it's man l'cholech be'echad, but if it's a separate date for each and every one, and there's different the space between each and every one, witness on the bottom, okay, then only esheid mekor kosher, only ones that the witnesses are read with, the last one's going to be kosher, but the pre-witnesses are going to be pasul. He says more machmer than everyone. In contrast to the previous price, we had an opinion that was more makel than everyone. He says, no, even if there's no space between them, it's going to be pasul. Yeah, just a separate date is going to be separating. But the Gemara asked parenthetically, once we brought in this brisa that's officially supporting him, but according to Rish Lakish, my area, why is this brisa that's supporting him saying Zman lekol echad v'echad, that if each one, every one has a separate date, then only the last ones that the witnesses are read with is going to be kosher. What do you mean? Even without having a separate date for each and every one, still the previous ones are going to be puzzled. Because he said, even there's one date for them all. It's still considered a specific text for each and every one, unless you have this pluralistic terminology that you're writing. Because the Gemara assumes that the Sefer is its own case. Now the Gemara answers, no, Hanamili, when did we say this? That even if there's one date, it's going to be puzzle, is Heichadulay Arvina Meikara. If you never put them together in the pluralistic terminology, they each had their own specific plainy and plainness. So then, yeah, I don't care if there's one zman, it's still going to be puzzle. But Aval Hache, this brisa is Darvina Meikara, that you originally did mix them together, because like Rashi explains, this that the Sefer is saying a separate case of that when each one has their own date, is going on the case of the Reisha. You had said the plural terminology of anu plaini, gerash no sheinu plainness and plainness, and then plaini gears plainness on Sunday and plaini gears plainness on Sunday. Oh, here since you originally have put them all together in the plural, ipaliglusman, and only if you have a separate date, then then the upper ones are going to be puzzled. Eloi, if you didn't separate with a separate date, then loi, no, it's not going to be separated and actually all going to be kosher because you had done the pluralistic terminology. That's why you need to have a separate date to make it puzzle. But if you never made a plural in the first place, then you're right. Even if they had one date, it would be puzzle because there's a type as a kol echad v'echad according to Rish Lakish.
How does the logistics of a local get work? The ladies line up and they pass it down?
No, they don't have to line up. You deliver to the house. You have the guy who brings it to each separate woman.
And he takes it back.
Yeah, delivers it, passing it on down the ladder. Now the Gemara continues to look at the next Mishnah. Also, with the theme of the previous Mishnah regarding the place where the witnesses are assigned. The halacha of our previous Mishnah was significant because you have all these men divorcing and you have the witness on the bottom. The question is where they're signed, what is going on. Seemingly it's on the last thing mentioned. So this Mishnah is a complex Mishnah. We're going to go with the way Rashi explains it, and there is different versions even how Rashi explains it, but we'll try our best regarding this halacha of how the witnesses are signed on the get. So it says the Mishnah like this. If you have shnei Gitin, 2 divorce documents, So these Gitin are written side by side along the width of the scroll, like this illustrates. Just that plain the gear is plain. This you see side by side. You have these two Gitin. Okay, now Ishnei Edim Ivrim. Now you have two Hebrew, we'll call them witnesses. It's two different Gitin, side by side. Plain the gear is plainness, and plain the gear is plainness. It doesn't make a difference on the same piece of paper. It's two different Gitin, like we said. So you have two Hebrew witnesses, boim mitachazeh, that are coming from beneath the first one, letachas zeh, to beneath the second one. Meaning, the name of the witness is beneath the first one, as you can see on this illustration. You see Ruvain ben Yaakov. You see his name is beneath the first get, and the name of his father is beneath the second get. And so too, the witness beneath him is the same thing. That he also signed Yosef ben or Kahas ben Levi. Okay, that's for the Hebrew slaves. Now, but you also have Vishnei Edim. You have two witnesses that are Jewish, that are Yevonim, Greek, meaning they live in the Greek Empire. Their boyim mitachazeh l'tachazeh. They also come from one beneath the other. Now, what's important to understand is that the way the Greek sign is different than the way the Jewish witnesses, the Hebrew witnesses sign. That the Greek witnesses are not the same as the Ivrim witnesses. When the Greek Jew signs Yosef ben Shimon, actually, his name is Shimon ben Yosef. Because this is where it gets a little bit complex. Because the way you translate Yosef ben Shimon, what it means to say really is that the son of Yosef, Yosef ben, the son of Yosef, is Shimon. It's like almost pig Latin. We're going backwards here, but that's how they sign it. So it comes out that when you have the witness signed on the second get, when you have Yosef ben Shimon, it's really Shimon ben Yosef, right? So if Talmud wasn't difficult enough, right? So he signed on the second get, and that means to say his father is really signed on the first get. No, not his name, right? Exactly, not signed, right? His father's name is beneath the first one. So by default, the Greek that are beneath the second get have really signed on the second get, not the first get. So that's really the most important principle to understand for the halacha of this Mishnah. That's exactly what we don't know. Many questions Talmud would be resolved. Just ask the guy, But we have these questions, right? This is we find this get. It's written and we get it. So says the Mishnah like this: the ones that the first witnesses are, right? Because again, you have these documents, these two Gitin side by side, and you have a pair of witnesses, another pair of witnesses beneath them. We'll see in a second why it matters. It's very important because we don't know what they're signing on. We don't know what they're signing on. So the one that the first witnesses, again, the ones that the first set is read with, kosher is going to be kosher. Meaning, like Rashi explains, if the Hebrews are signed first, that means to say the right get is kosher. If the Greeks were signed first, the left one is kosher. Because, again, they signed from left to right, so to speak. So it would be the left one that they're signed on. The Gemara is going to ask, but why is the other one possible? It has the Hebrews signed also. Why the Gemara is going to ask, why is that possible? Now the Mishnah says another case. You have one Hebrew signed, then you have one Greek signed, then you have one Hebrew signed, and then you have one Greek signed, in that order. Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew, Greek. So boin, think about yogurt now, but boin mitachazeh l'tachazeh. So you come, and they're each one beneath the other one. Now this is a complex case. So Rashi explains like this: you have the Hebrew witness, and you have the Greek witness that are coming from beneath the right get to the left get. And then you have, like we said, a Hebrew witness and the Greek witnesses also beneath them. They're coming from the left get to the right get. How is that? Why is that? So Rashi explains. For example, you have the first, so the first Hebrew is written very simple. Reuven ben Yaakov. Shkoyach. That's number one. Now the first Greek, he signs beneath the left side. For some reason, this is how Rashi explains it. Right. Good question. He signed, again, there's different gersois in Rashi, but this is how our Rashi has it. He signs beneath the left one, Yosef ben, some take out the word ben and puts it with Shimon, but there's Yosef on the left one, at the end of the line, and then he signs Shimon, as you see this illustrates, in the beginning of the second line, beneath partly why you would say that really, this picture is not perfect. Partly why you would say why he signed on the left one is because it seems like Reuven ben Yaakov, and then I think there was room for Yosef ben on that first line. The words of Rashi seem to indicate that, so it wouldn't be like this. It would really be that he wrote Yosef ben because there was still little room left. So he wrote on the left, and then he finished signing, like the typewriter, it goes back to the, remember that? And it goes back to the next line. So it should have been Yosef ben, there's no room. It goes, okay, down to the right side. So it comes out, where's his name? His name is on the right one. Because we just explained before that the way the Greeks sign is that Yosef ben Shimon is not Yosef the son of Shimon, is the son of Yosef is Shimon. So it comes out that he's actually beneath the right get. And he's coming from the right to the left. The name of his father is on the left. His name is on the right. Okay? Now, the second Hebrew, so he signs his name where the Greek left off from. So he signs on the left side at the end of the column because the Greek left him some space. Now, his father's name is beneath the right one in the beginning of the next column. It comes out that he's really coming from the second get, moving into the first get. Now, the second Greek, he signed beneath, totally beneath. He's done with this going from line to line. He starts his own line in one line. Yachzel ben, that's beneath the first column. And Naphtali, it's his father's name, beneath the second column. Comes out, really, where's he signed on? Not the first one. Because the Greeks, their name is really the second name. So he signed on the second one.
We're assuming that that's the intention, was it's written here, so
The Greeks signed their name, Yosef ben Shimon, is really, the son of Yosef is Shimon. So his name, which that's the witness, is the second one in Greek. So this is how they wrote, either because of what space was. This is the configuration of how Rashi is telling us the case is. Now we're trying to figure out, what do we make out of this? There's two different Gitin over here. You don't have to. It could be the same paper, because but it's considered a separate Gitin because they're separate documents, just on the same paper. Yes, you put it into a safety deposit box, right? Whatever it is. Yeah. Why? No. Yosef ben Shimon is the son of Yosef is Shimon. This is the Greek. The Greek is the yellow and the Hebrew is the blue. We know blue is very Hebrew. Yes, and Reuben and Shimon, exactly. So that's why when the Mishnah now says Shneim Psulin, Rashi says B'Gemara Mafarish Timer. Why would it be possible? Chayav 2 and 2. Why would that be possible? Okay. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara, the Yosef man. I think from Rashi it sounds like that there was a little bit room left. Ben Yaakov, there was a little room Yosef ben, and he went down Shimon. So. You're saying it would have been simpler, each one would have done a separate, and we wouldn't have had a Mishnah to discuss over here and have fun today, right? No, but it sounds like that there was a little bit space over here, so he took over here, and then he took over what he did. The last guy looked like he ran out of patience. He's like, do me a favor, right? He's the guy who doesn't like when we open up wrappers and he's a Ginig Scheinbe. Give me my own line. You want to know if how do we know if he's a? No, it could have been the same place without the and he signed his name over there. You're right, but we would have different doubts because we would know. You want to know exactly what the? Now you really getting me like to figure out what would be if it was all Hebrews versus Greeks and what the doubts could be. Al Kaponim. This is what we have over here. So now the Gemara has a question on the Reisha. The Gemara has an interesting question. The Gemara's questions are also interesting. The Gemara says, V'liskasher, why don't you say, regarding the case of the Reisha, why don't you validate both of them? In other words, in the case of the Reisha, we had said like this. We had said, if let's say, this case, you have 2 Hebrews and you have 2 Greeks. What did we say? We said the ones that the first ones that are on the Gitin, those are the ones that are going to validate. So obviously only the first get is going to be valid because Reuben and Kahas, which are Hebrews, are signed on the first one. Says the Gemara, why? Both Gitin should be valid. You know why? Hi, the first one, Beruven, Vahai, and the left one, Ben Yaakov Eid. That it says, the son of Yaakov is the witness. So both should be valid through the first 2 witnesses. Not forget about the Greeks. It should be valid from the first 2 Hebrews because Reuven is ein Zach and Ben Yaakov Eid is a andere Zach. Well, first the Gemara says that's not. The Gemara says we learned in the Mishnah, which is the coming Mishnah, that says if you write Ben Ish Pliny Eid, the son, Haman's Bisti, right? Haman's Bisti, the son of that person is Eid is kosher. So Ben Yaakov itself should validate. Reuven should validate this one, and Ben Yaakov should validate the second one. The Gemara says no, because of Reuven Ben is written Akam on the first one. The Yaakov Eid Abaster, and Yaakov Eid is on the second one. So the Gemara says, V'leskasher, why don't you validate Hai Reuven Ben? Because Reuven Ben would sound like, I'm the son of Reuven. The way we explained by the Greeks how they sign, we said Reuven Ben Yosef by the Greeks is actually the son of Reuven is Yosef. So if you wrote Reuven Ben, you could say the son of Reuven, and V'leskasher Hai, validate the second one. How come? Because interesting questions the Gemara is asking is Yaakov Eid. The guy who signed beneath the second one was someone else. His name was Yaakov. Yaakov the Eid. So don't tell me it's not kosher because you don't have Reuven on one and Ben Yaakov on the other one because it's actually Reuven Ben on the first one and Yaakov Ben on the second one. That is also good. Reuven Ben could be the son of Reuven, and Yaakov Eid could be Yaakov the witness. Because now we're doing the Mishnah, the coming Mishnah that says, if you write Ish Pliny Eid, this guy, let's say Yaakov is an Eid, is kosher. So that itself is okay. And Reuven Ben should also be kosher. The Gemara says, no, the Lekos of Eid. They didn't write the word Eid. And the coming Mishnah that picked specifically Ish Pliny Eid is where you didn't sign Pliny Ben Pliny. Then you need to have Eid. But if you write Reuven Ben Yaakov, that's enough. You don't have to write Eid. So since they only wrote Reuven Ben Yaakov and you didn't write the word Eid, so it says Reuven Ben and you just have Yaakov, what's Yaakov? Yaakov was. If you wrote the whole name, that's good enough. But Yaakov without Eid is not good enough, and therefore that's why the second get is not going to be kosher. Only the first get on the right is going to be kosher. Oh, that's what I'm saying. The Hebrew and Yevani. That's probably the script. It's probably the script that the way they wrote. Right, but I'm saying, meaning the question is how did they know? But al chayra is that they wrote in a different. Right. I think it was evident in their writing. I think that what was the Greeks were writing versus the Hebrew. Yeah, if they wrote it, or however they signed it, right in their Greek way. So that's one pshat the Gemara says. Another pshat the Gemara says, "Let him the kasav." No, you could even say no. It actually says Reuven ben Yaakov 8. So why isn't it kosher? With the Yadin the Bachasima the love Yaakov, because we know that the one who son was not Yaakov, it's rather the son of Yaakov. It was Reuven ben Yaakov. So don't tell me a shtickle taita, maybe it's Reuven ben, the son of Reuven, and then Yaakov Aid was a separate guy Yaakov. No, we could tell it's not Yaakov. We could tell it's his son Reuven that signed. So the Gemara continues on the base says, but wait a second, that's not a good answer. But maybe signed with his father's name on the second one, and maybe signed them both. Maybe Reuven ben, and then Yaakov Aid that it was signing with his father's name. The Gemara says no. Leishavik in the Shmei, a person would not leave his own name, and sign with his father's name. So the Gemara, okay, but maybe maybe he used his father's name as like a sign, as a symbol, because the Rav Tzayir Kavra, we know people have emblems and symbols. Rav would not sign his name. He would make a picture of a fish with his handwriting. He wouldn't write his name. Rav Chanina would do a charusa. He would make a branch of a palm tree. Rav Chizda would make a samach. Rav Hoshia would make an ayin, because that's their names, with samach and Chizda and ayin and Rav Hoshia. Rabbi Rav Huna would tzayir machusa. He would make a mast. They probably did well in class with doodling and making nice pictures. This is how they sign their names. So therefore, maybe this guy uses his father's name as his emblem. So the a person would not have the audacity to make his father's name as his emblem. It's a chutzpah. It's a person wouldn't do that, and therefore it can't be that Yaakov Aid was the son of Yaakov, and therefore that's another pshat to say why we're going to say the second one is not going to be kosher. But then the Gemara has a different question. Forget about validating both Gitin because of the two Hebrews that are signed it, but why don't you validate because of the Greeks signed on it? Well, the Skasher High, you should validate the right one, B'shnei Edim Ivrim, with the two Hebrews, and with the Skasher High, B'shnei Edim Yavanim, and you should validate the left ones with the two Greek ones. Because the coming Mishnah tells us it's not a problem that there's a gap between them and the Gitin because the Hebrews are signed first. That's not a problem, because the Mishnah tells us, get shekesavoy. If you have a get that its writing was written in Ivris, in Hebrew, the Eid of Yavanis, and the witnesses wrote in Greek, or Yavanis, let's say it was written in Greek, the Eid of Ivris, and the witnesses signed in Hebrew, kosher, that's going to be valid. So we don't care the fact that, and there's clearly, like we're saying, that they're written in Greek, that shouldn't invalidate it. And the Chidim, you're going to say, no, I'll tell you why it's a problem. Because given the muflik, since there's a gap between their signature, Bishnei Sheet, and 2 lines worth, because in the 2 lines that the Hebrews had signed their names, so they're beneath them, that loy is not going to be valid, because the Brisa teaches in Baba Basra that if the Eidim are a distance from the writing 2 lines worth, it's going to be puzzle. So maybe you're going to say that therefore the Greeks are not going to validate the second get because the Hebrews are 2 lines in the way, but it's not true. Because Chizkiah explains over there in Baba Basra that Mil'ahu, if you filled up that gap of airspace with Bekravim, with relatives, even though they're not even kosher witnesses, kosher is going to be valid because we're only particular about airspace. And Rashi has a very interesting svara. Says, don't wonder how could it be better with Eidim Psulim like relatives. He says, we find a halacha of sukkah that aver, airspace, invalidates with 3 tvachim, but schach pasel invalidates only with a gap of 4 tvachim. Very interesting svara that everyone talks about with this Rashi, right? So you see that schach pasel is actually better. If it's only 3 tvachim, it actually is going to be valid. So he wrote to Kravim is going to be better than empty space. But upon him, so why don't you validate the left one with the Greeks that are signed? Yosef ben Shimon means Shimon ben Yosef, so that should be validating the second one on the left. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Because Tani Zeiri. Ziri taught regarding these 2 Gitin of our Mishnah, he says, actually, you're right. Frex good. Shneim ksherim. Really, both Gitin, the right and the left, are kosher. The Tana of our Mishnah that says, no, that the left one, the last one's going to be puzzle. He holds Dilma Gundalis Chasam. Maybe the Greeks signed Gundalis. What does that mean? Maybe they signed not the way they usually do. Maybe they followed the lead of the Hebrews who signed first, who are above them. And therefore, maybe V'kulu Achad, maybe all of them on one of them, meaning on the first get, who the Chasim is what they signed, Rashi explains whenever you don't do it in the normal way, it's called gundalas. So he brings him the Chuvas HaGa'onim that if someone uses his left hand, so in his place they're called gundala because you're changing from how you normally do it. So maybe what happened was really they really wrote Yosef ben Shimon and Yachza ben Naphtali, not Shimon ben Yosef and Naphtali ben Yachza. Maybe they did, like when in Rome, do like the Romans, when by the Hebrews, do like the Hebrews. So they did it the Hebrew way. So we don't know that. So therefore we can't say the second one's kasha because maybe the Greeks signed the way the Hebrews did and they did their name first and then their father's name. Now we had another case in the Mishnah, which was you have one Hebrew, one Greek. So, and then one Hebrew, one Greek, and we actually said that both are going to be puzzle. I said, whoa, why are both puzzle? Let the first one be kosher with one Hebrew, one Greek, and this one be kosher with one Hebrew and one Greek. Because that now we learn in the coming Mishnah that says, kosher. If you have one Hebrew and one Greek witness, it's going to be kosher. So why don't you say the same thing over here? As we described, as it was pointed out before, that you're going to have each one really has one Hebrew, one Greek. Because these two, the first two, Hebrew and Greek, the way Rashi defined the case, are really on the right one. And here, the Kahas is on the left one, and Naphtali is also, the guy's name is also on the left. So why is it not kosher? So here also the Gemara says the same answer. The truth is, Ziri taught in the Brisa that you're right, Shneim Kasherim. Really, both should be kosher. But Batan the Didan, regarding these Greeks, he's concerned that Dilma Gundalas Chasam. Maybe they signed in this Gundalas way, one of them. In other words, maybe the first Greek signed in the order of the Hebrews, where that they were signed, that this Hebrew signed on top of him. So maybe actually it was his name first on the left side, and then it was his father's name. So it comes out that he's really signed on the second one. Then the second Hebrew saw that he signed on the second one, so he also signed on the second one. Then the last Greek signed maybe in his normal way. So it comes out that v'tlasa achad, that you have three on one, v'chad achad, and you have only one on one. Meaning, it comes out the way Rashi described it, you can have three on the second one, and that means to say the first one only has one. Yeah, but as Rashi says now, maybe not. Maybe what happened is maybe the first Greek signed in the normal way that the Greeks usually sign, which is therefore he's on the first one because his Shimon is really his real name, so he's on the first one. And maybe the second Greek signed Gundalis because he saw the Hebrew signing their name on the right one. Comes out you have two Greeks and one Hebrew signed on the first one, and on the second get you only have one. So therefore they're both possible because we don't know how they signed on these Gitin. That was this Mishnah and that Gemara. Now, I'll look at the next Mishnah. It continues on this theme regarding the signing of the witnesses. The Mishnah continues on a similar vein regarding this difficulty of understanding exactly what was being done over here of what the witnesses are signed on. So it says in the Mishnah like this: Shiur mixes a get. Let's say part of the get was left over, meaning it didn't fit into the paper on the column that you wrote. So v'chasav b'daf hasheni. So they wrote it on the. We're also going into the next daf. It was written on to the next, but in this it means the next column that's next to it on the width of the get. Now the edim momata. So what do the witnesses do? Obviously, if you go onto the second column, the witness is on the bottom. Says the Mishnah kosher, it's going to be a valid get. However, it says the Mishnah, if let's say you have chasmu edim b'reish daf, you have witnesses signed actually on the top of the column, or min hatzad, as you see these pictures illustrated, either on the top or on the side next to it on the width of the margin of the scroll, oy me'acharav, or actually you have on the back, as this illustrates, beget pashid, in contrast to get makush, which actually you're supposed to sign on the back. But on the regular get, which the Adam are supposed to sign inside of it, any one of these cases, possible is going to be invalid. It was not signed as it's supposed to be to know that they're signing on the writing of the get. Says the Mishnah further, hikif. If let's say they connected one with the other, meaning you have Reisha Shalzeh beside Reisha Shalzeh, as you see this picture illustrates, the head of the two Gitin, they were written on opposite sides, starting from the middle of that paper, and you have the Eidim Be'emtza. You have the witnesses in the middle between the tops of these two Gitin. So Shnei B'sulim, they're both going to be pasul because they're not read with the signature, with neither one. They're both not at the end of any one of the Gitin. Now, next case says the Mishnah, what happens if Seifei Shalzeh b'tzad Seifei Shalzeh, the other way around? The ends are where they meet. The end of one is opposite the end of the other one. The Eidim Emtzi have witnesses in the middle. Oh, here it's different. So the witnesses that are read with the roof of the signature's handwriting is towards that one that has the last writing, the way you usually sign, that's going to be the one that's going to be kosher because that's a regular get. You have the witness sign at the end. Now, what happens if you have Reisha Shalzeh b'tzad Seifei Shalzeh? You have the head of one get opposite against the end of, meaning as like another end, meaning opposite the end of the other one. The Eidim Emtzi have witnesses in the middle. Okay, Asher Eidim Nikrin b'Seifei, the one that the witness is signed at its end, meaning that the roof of their signature is opposite its end, not that its feet of the signatures are towards their head. That's going to be the one that's kosher, meaning the first one. Says the Mishnah further, get Ksavei Ivris. If you have a get that's written in Hebrew, Ve'edav Yavanis and the witnesses are signing in Greek, or Yavanis, Ve'edav Ivris are written in Greek and the witness signing in Hebrew, or Eidechad Ivri Ve'eidechad Yavani, you have one Hebrew witness and one Greek witness. Or another case, which is really unrelated, Iksav Sefer Ve'ed. If you have a scribe who wrote the get, and you have only one witness who signed, kosher, it's going to be valid. Now, continues the Mishnah, if you have Ish Pleni Aid, if you just have this person is the witness, kosher, that's valid. Or you have Ben Ish Pleni Aid, and we quoted this previously, or the son of that person is aid, that's kosher. If you have Ish Pleni Ben Ish Pleni, if you have this man, the son of this man, but you didn't even write over their aid, that's also kosher, as we said, only if you write the full name. And that's how the ones who had clean consciousness in Yerushalayim, that's what they would do. They would use the smallest, most precise terminology, so they wouldn't sign aid. They would just say pleni ben pleni. Now, if kasav chanichasai b'chanichasa, if they write his nickname or her nickname, meaning like the family name, that's kosher. That's also going to be valid. Now, the Gemara asks on the Reisha of the Mishnah. We mentioned the case if you leave over some of the get and you go on to the second column. So he said, okay, and you have the witness sign, that's going to be a kosher get. Says the Gemara, why is it going to be kosher? Belechish, you should be concerned that Dilma Hani Trei Gitin have an interesting Gemara. Maybe these were two full Gitin, and the left was written higher up in the scroll more than the right one, until the Isramele, that it really comes out that Zman de Kama, the date of where the first one is equal to the Eidim de Basra, where, in other words, where the second one finished was really where the first one was starting. Like Rashi says, Zman de Kama means its beginning, and the Eidim de Basra means the end, but it doesn't really mean the date and the witnesses literally. It just means to say the last lines where the witnesses are signed beneath them is really the end of the second one. And so what should we be concerned about? Maybe the Gaziel is man de Basra ve'edin de Kama. Maybe, interesting, that what happened is that whoever did this, manipulated this get, this Gitin, he cut off the end of the first one, which was his own get. Why would he cut off the bottom? Was because there was conditions over here on the bottom of his get. So he cut off the bottom, and he also cut off the top of the second get, making that the forgery that it can look like it's continuing what was cut off from his bottom, that the word should match up, and he's really divorcing over 2/2 a Gitin. And really the witnesses did not sign on his get. So why is it that this case is going to be kosher? Wow. So it says the Gemara, I'll answer you why. Because Amar Reb Abba, Amar Rav, he says, we're talking about Kishiyesh Rebach Milmata. We're talking about where there's space beneath the first margin of the first one, where for sure nothing was cut off, because you see nothing more was written, because it's empty space. If it was cut off, if it was really a middle, you wouldn't have empty space in the margin. It would really, the writing continued.
They're not like either of these.
Right.
No space.
It's like this.
Yeah.
There's space. So then you know he didn't cut off. Says the Gemara, wait a second, I still have a question. But Vidilma, maybe his get, so creative, the Gemara's question, maybe they started writing, but they changed their mind and they decided they're not going to finish the get. Then, on the other side, on the top, they started writing another get. And they signed on it. Then he changed his mind and he decided, he's going to divorce her. And then, Zman de Basra make his geyser. Maybe what this guy did was he cut off the upper part of the second get because he's lazy. Instead of finishing, they never finished. They stopped the middle. But they wrote another get on the second one. So he says, instead of me wasting time and writing the end, he just will cut off the top of the second get, make it exactly to the word where he was up to when they stopped his get, just to finish his get. So maybe it's really all his get. How are you validating any of them? Maybe it's 2/2 a get, 2/2 a Gitin. Says the Gemara, no, as we mentioned before, that this gap on the bottom, says the Gemara continues the top of Peichasim and Aleph, Hachanami here also is when there is a gap on the top. Stop over here. Anytime. We have to.